Hello everyone, this is Angela here, and today is August the 30th, 2025. I don't remember when I did my last video. I took a very long time away from YouTube, away from making narcissism videos. For those who are new to this channel is a personal vlog about my struggles with growing up in a toxic family. My mother was extremely narcissistic, and my father was a codependent enabler. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about my relationship with my father and my father's issues and how this all ties into narcissism and the toxic family dynamics. First of all, I want to say that I took the time away to really focus on healing and about moving forward with my life, and and today I feel pretty good. I've done a lot of healing, a lot of good, and it's been going along nicely. Just a personal update before I get into this subject. I've been continuing on with my vocal lessons and my trumpet lessons, and I really love it. I love music. I always have since I was young, and I'm just going back to the things that I did in my youth before my life took a drastic turn, and getting pregnant at 16 and marrying the father and that whole thing, and giving up the life that I had set out before all that stuff happened. So I want to get into my father's issues in this video. For those who are new to the channel, I had a very toxic relationship with my mother, who was extremely narcissistic. I believe that she was a full-blown narcissist to the point where she was sociopathic, and there's a lot of videos on that, okay? A lot of anger there, a lot of hurt, and it's not about hate, it's about hurt where that was concerned. And but it does get better as the years go by, and my healing comes from not living my life as a victim, but being compassionate, taking the time to show even compassion for the narcissist, because I realized that my mother's life wasn't easy either. She was not a person that should have ever gotten married and had kids, because she just wasn't capable of raising children. She had her own issues, and narcissism was one of them. Anyway, so now let's talk about my dad. My dad was born in 1940, and my grandparents had 4 children. My dad's brother was the oldest. He was 10 years older than my dad. He was born in 1930. Then my grandmother had a baby after that, a girl. That little girl, when she was 2 years old, had died. And because the little girl had died, my grandmother blamed herself. She ended up having a full-blown breakdown, which required in-hospital care. In those days, in the 1930s, when a person was admitted into a psychiatric hospital for severe depression, they gave shock treatments, which my grandmother had. She recovered, but as a result of that baby dying, she became extremely overprotective of her children. And that's the reason why I think my uncle, my dad's oldest brother, became a narcissist, and my dad became a mommy coddled, codependent. When my dad was 3 years old, my grandmother had another baby, which was a girl born with cerebral palsy, and that little girl was also mommy coddled to the point where she was extremely codependent. These people these kids, my grandmother's kids, were, I would say, emotionally stunted. That's what I would describe them, emotionally stunted. Okay, so I want to talk about my parents' marriage. So my parents got married in 1962. My brother was born. My brother is the oldest. And my mother was very emotionally disconnected from my brother. She did not care for his physical needs, and she left him alone in the crib by himself and went out with her girlfriend. My uncle and my grandmother, my dad's brother and mother, came and to check on the baby, and the baby was left by himself, crying. He had a diaper rash, and so as a result, there was a fight, and my uncle, my dad's brother, slapped my mother across the face. And my dad did not stand up for my mother, because that was wrong. Okay, my mother was wrong for what she did, but that was wrong. So anyway, charges were brought against my uncle for assaulting my mother, because that's just what he did. He was a violent person. He was mean. He was violent. He had antisocial personality traits. And that's a whole other story. I want to focus on my dad. So my mom resented my dad for not standing up for her. And believe it or not, my mom was right about that. So there was another time in life where my mom had legitimate complaints about my dad. My dad was a lousy provider, okay? I'm not trying to speak negatively about my dad, okay? I guess he tried his best, but they used to have vicious fights to the point where the cops were called. And my mom's chief complaints were that my dad didn't make enough money to make ends meet, and all the pressure was left upon her. She had to go to work. She had to help financially support 3 kids, okay? Because my brother was born in 63. My sister Jerry was born in 65, and I was born in 66. Yeah, I'm that old, okay? And so it was a lot of pressure. So, you know, my grandmother was a helicopter parent. She really was. And it's like my dad couldn't make an independent thought without consulting with my grandmother about whether or not it was the right decision. She never encouraged him. I mean, she wasn't like controlling like that. It's just that she took it upon herself to do everything. Okay? And that's why my dad had really low self-esteem. I'm not saying that my grandmother was evil. She wasn't. But she needed help. She needed therapy. And it all stemmed back from when that child had died. Okay, so there was another time back when I was 12 years old. This was before my little sister was born. Okay, because my little sister was born when I was 15. So I was 12 years old, and my parents came over, my grandparents, my dad's parents, for Thanksgiving dinner. And they arrived late. And the reason why they arrived late was because, to be honest, my dad couldn't stand his brother, my uncle, who had antisocial personality traits. And I got real annoyed because I was the child that was treated like the waitress, okay? I was the one that had to clear the table, set the table, do the dishes. My siblings nor my cousin had to do any of that. It was all me, okay? And when I complained, they came in late after everything was cleaned up, and I complained, "What do you think I am, your maid?" Because my mother was saying, "Can you get me this? Can you get me that? Can you get me the other?" My uncle stood up and took it, backhanded me, and went, pow, right across my face. And my father just sat there like a chump and didn't stand up for me. A normal guy would have stood up and said, "Hey, that's my daughter. I'll discipline her. Thank you very much." But my dad didn't, because my dad was a coward. When my mother used to fight with him and complain about him not trying to look for better jobs, because my dad did menial labor, okay? He was the guy that used to take the grocery bags, and people used to tip him, and he used to sweep and mop floors in a produce store. That was my dad's occupation. He did have a job at one point in his life working in a factory, because in those days, in the 60s, there were tons of factory jobs. He did work in doing that, but after that closed up, textile mills and all that stuff went to the wayside, and my dad never did anything else. So my mother complained, that the money wasn't coming in, and she was right. My mother had extramarital affairs, and the marriage was a disaster. The marriage was a disaster, but they kept making babies, okay? They had 3 kids. And then when I was 15, they had a 4th child. And my mother completely abandoned that child, dumped that baby on my grandmother. My dad's mom and my grandmother took it upon herself to raise that baby, even though she was way up in years. And that turned into a disaster. So there was another time when I really needed my father to have a firm hand, and that was when I became a teenager, because I started rebelling against my mother. We used to conflict because my emotional needs weren't met, and neither were my physical needs. I had to learn how to wash my own clothes from the time I was 8 years old. It was just inappropriate. And my dad's needs weren't met. And, the fighting and the viciousness and all this other stuff. So I had met this guy, and I was 16. He was 23 at the time. And unfortunately, not really understanding the birds and the bees, I ended up getting pregnant with by this guy. Because neither one of my parents safeguarded me from that relationship, which was inappropriate, okay? He was too old. Like, when I got older and I came to my senses, okay, I realized that my parents should have safeguarded me from this guy, because the relationship was inappropriate, okay? 23-year-old with a 16-year-old was inappropriate. There were no boundaries in my household. Boundaries were broken constantly. And some of those boundaries are too painful for me to talk about. I had to sort all this out in therapy. It's very painful. But this is a result of mommy coddling a child, okay? Because when mom does everything for the child, then the child doesn't learn how to do for themselves. Don't mommy coddle your sons. I'm not saying to neglect your sons, but life is a discovery, and children need to discover life by making mistakes, okay? You got to allow your child to make mistakes, and when they start getting older, to learn how to make decisions from yourself. The purpose, there is a healthy boundary between safeguarding your child and grooming your child to have a fear of the world. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. My dad didn't stand up for me when I needed him to be there for me, okay? And I had to discover life by making really bad mistakes, which I did. And I had to deal with my own issues about life. I didn't understand what a healthy relationship was, what a healthy marriage was, all of these things. I didn't learn all that till later in life, until I started really getting into therapy. So what I'm trying to say here is that even though my mother was a narcissist, she was not wrong about everything. Oh, no. And I could still hear her words. She used to say, he refuses to help himself. He was so toxic and so codependent that he didn't have the balls to leave her, even though she blatantly cheated on him right to his face. And he knew about it. And guess what? He accepted it. My mom and the guy that she cheated on my dad with went on a vacation to Disney World. And guess what? My father went with them. Yeah. That's how sick and toxic their relationship was. He used to vent and complain to me about her cheating on him, about the same issues over and over and over. That's all he did was cry and cry victim and this, that. But he never did anything because he didn't have the balls to go out and do anything to help himself. He was emotionally stunted. Okay? He was stunted in his emotional development because his mother did everything for him. Any decision that he didn't know what to do, he ran to mommy, and mommy told him what to do. Yeah. So that's what happened. And so, you know, you hear the psychiatrists talk in other YouTube videos, and they say how the narcissistic dynamic is one person is the narcissist and the other person is the enabler. And my father was an enabler. She could do whatever she wanted because he didn't have the courage to leave her. It takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage to stand up, to say something, to do the right thing. And when your child is mommy coddled and your child is codependent because he can't think for himself, that's what happens to children. Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to send a message out here. But did my father love me? When I was a little kid, my father did show love. He used to do things and pick up the slack where my mother didn't. Like my mother didn't cook for us, okay? The house was a mess because she was a hoarder. So she didn't cook, and there was no fresh food in the refrigerator because the refrigerator was nasty. So my dad used to buy something from, like, you know, the neighborhood steak shop or whatever to make sure we had something to eat. Or we used to have to go to my grandparents' house to get something to eat. All the holiday meals were made by my grandparents, you know. And my mother's mother used to complain too about my dad saying, you know, putting him down, that he didn't have a good job and what and this and that and the other. And oh my God, what a mess. My whole family was so toxic. So I hope I'm getting the message out here to show you all from an older person's perspective and explaining how toxic it is to mommy coddle your sons, especially your sons. They're not going to develop into healthy adults unless you back off and have some healthy boundaries, okay, and let your children discover life and do things for themselves in an appropriate way. Not inappropriate, an appropriate way, okay? Having healthy boundaries. I'm not saying to abandon your child, but there has to be boundaries to where you let them start doing things for themselves in an age-appropriate manner. So that's all I got to say for this video. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope you all are doing well, and have a great day. Take care. Bye.